What's up, guys? D-Rock1992 here. For this next video, I am going to be, even though we're in January, we're in a new year, by the way, 2016. It's unbelievable. This year has gone by so quickly. It's unbelievable. But I am going to be talking about, this video comes a little bit late, I'm going to be talking about the final month of 2015, December, and the major releases, small releases of significance to me that came out in the month of December. So without further ado, I'm going to get right into it. The first movie that came out in December in a wide release was a horror comedy called Krampus. And Krampus is about this opposite of Santa Claus, Krampus, which is an old Germanic folklore tale. Krampus brings fear and suffering to people who do not believe in Christmas. Santa Claus brings joy and happiness to people who do believe in Christmas. So Krampus is basically the polar opposite of Santa Claus. This movie has some familiar faces. Adam Scott has been a television actor and a movie actor for a while. David Koechner, who's appeared in quite a bit of movies. Conchata Ferro, who played Berta in Two and a Half Men. So the movie got a budget of $15 million, and it made $57.7 million. A good total. So it was a moneymaker at the box office. And it's received mixed reviews, 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, so actually good reviews for a horror comedy. Because there have been horror comedies in the past that have not gotten great reviews. It's just the way it is. So, with a lot of critics and things like that. So, Krampus what came out first in that year, or in the month of December. Another movie that came out in December was In the Heart of the Sea, which is a biopic, sort of. Not really a biopic, but a biographical. It's a biographical action-adventure fantasy thriller drama film. This is a starring role by Chris Hemsworth, who had appeared in the movie Black Cat, which was the first American release, the first North American movie released in 2015. And now this movie is one of the last. So Chris Hemsworth has a starring role as a first mate in this movie. This actually inspired the story of Moby Dick. The famous book, of course, that was written in the 1820s. It inspired, so it is about the sinking of the American whaling ship, which was named Essex in 1820, an event that inspired the novel of Moby Dick. So it was made on a budget of $100 million. Box office-wise, not good. $82.2 million. So not a ton of people went to see it. It was then classified as a box office bomb, In the Heart of the Sea. And it did not receive great reviews, 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's kind of proving that Chris Hemsworth, besides Thor, can't really lead a movie. I mean, doesn't really have a big box office draw beyond Thor, because Black Cat was not a big movie. I mean, it was kind of a failure as a movie, and In the Heart of the Sea now is kind of not good. So it's kind of proving that Chris Hemsworth can't really lead a movie beyond Thor. I mean, there was a movie in 2013 called Rush that got great reviews. I don't think it was a great moneymaker, though, and it had Chris Hemsworth in the starring role. Some other actors in the movie: Brendan Gleeson, who I've heard of, Ben Whishaw, who plays Q in the Bond movies, now. He played him in Skyfall and Spectre. Tom Holland, who is the new Spider-Man coming up, and many others as well. So that is In the Heart of the Sea. Next movie I'm going to be talking about is a movie that has an all-star cast, one of the greatest casts ever assembled in the history of movies, The Big Short. The Big Short, first off, is about the financial crisis of 2007 to 2010 that was brought on by the buildup of the housing market and credit bubble. So this is about the big recession that we've had in our history recently. And when I say big cast, I mean big cast. You have Christian Bale, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and Brad Pitt all headlining this movie. They are A-list stars. Absolute A-list stars. And the movie made over it had a $28 million budget, and box office wise it made $37.4 million. This movie in no way was meant to be a blockbuster at all, despite the names. But it did make a little bit of money, definitely. And the reception of it has been great. 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. Very good review for this movie. And a lot of praise to the acting, especially I've heard Christian Bale, Steve Carell, and Ryan Gosling have received rave reviews for their acting in this movie. Not a lot about Brad Pitt, but I'm sure he does fine in this movie. I definitely want to see it, for sure. I definitely want to see this movie at some point. So that is The Big Short. And the biggest movie of the year. Now I'm going to talk about the biggest movie of the year. The movie that everyone has been expecting. You know, everyone had such high expectations for. Especially for people who did not like the prequels of this series. And that's Star Wars The Force Awakens. It was heavily expected. People just wanted this movie to be good because there are many people out there that did not like the prequels. Myself, I did reviews on Episode 1 and Episode 2. Episode 1 was good. Episode 2 was disappointing. And I have to watch Episode 3 again because I haven't watched it in years. So, and then Star Wars The Force Awakens just really, really did well. First of all, sorry about that, my cat. He wants to be a movie star. He wants to get in the camera and all that. Get in front of the camera. So anyway, a lot of your old actors. Harrison Ford returns as Han Solo. Mark Hamill returns as Luke Skywalker. Carrie Fisher returns as Princess Leia. Or Leia Organa. Some new actors. Adam Driver plays Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Domhnall Gleeson, some other names as well. So anyway, this movie was a huge success. It was made on a budget of $200 million. So far, it has made $1.511 billion thus far. Incredible. And this is in 3 weeks. This is in 3 weeks. It just it's in its third weekend of release this weekend and all that. Opening weekend, it made $247 million. It crushed the competition that year, in that week. And I'll be talking about the other movies that opened up against Star Wars. But Star Wars just crushed it. I saw the movie in theaters. I loved the movie. It was so good. The best movie that I've seen this year so far. And I've seen about 11 or 12 movies, I think. And this movie just tops them all, in my opinion, so far. I have to see a lot of other 2015 movies. So maybe my opinion will change, but right now, Star Wars The Force Awakens is the best one. It is so good. And coming up later on my channel, I will be doing a review of Star Wars Episode 7. I have to get through all the other episodes first, because I'm going to be doing them in chronological order. But, yeah, look forward to that. I look forward to doing that review for sure. And then in its second weekend, it made $153.5 million. Only 9 other movies had a better opening weekend than what Star Wars had in its second weekend of release, or second weekend of release. Incredible. So Star Wars, probably the biggest movie of the year. The biggest movie of the year for sure. It already is the 6th highest grossing movie of all time. That's unbelievable. I don't think it's even released in China yet either. I mean, so incredible what Star Wars The Force Awakens did. Definitely it'll be a lot of fans' movie of the year, for sure. There were a couple movies that opened up against Star Wars The Force Awakens. They actually didn't do that bad. First of all, I'm going to talk about Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Road Chip. It's a kid's movie for sure. And it's the 4th movie, unbelievably so. It is the 4th movie of the Alvin and the Chipmunks film series. The 4th movie. The first 3 movies didn't get great reviews at all. Critic reviews and whatnot. This movie's no different. First of all, the movie had a budget of $90 million and a box office total of $91.6. So far, I mean, Alvin and the Chipmunks, granted, is only in its 3rd weekend, so it'll make more money. But actually, in the first 2 weeks, it's made about $12 to $15 million. So it's actually done pretty well as a little bit of counter-programming against Star Wars. But the critic reviews for it, not good. 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. So there are a lot of critics that hate these movies. And then the other movie that opened up against Star Wars The Force Awakens is the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler comedy, Sisters. This is about a group of sisters, or a pair of sisters who their childhood home is getting sold, and they reunite and just throw a last final party to say goodbye to their house before it gets sold. So it is Amy Poehler and Tina Fey, SNL alums, they're great together anyway. And just the people who were on SNL, Maya Rudolph, SNL, former SNL alum, Bobby Moynihan, who is currently on Saturday Night Live, he's in this movie, Rachel Dratch, former SNL alum, Chris Parnell, former SNL alum, and Kate McKinnon, who is currently on SNL. So, unbelievable. A lot of the SNL people are in this movie, for sure. But this show is run by Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, and the movie itself, on a $30 million budget, it's made $66.1 million overall. So very good total for this movie. And it's bound to make more money since it's only in the 3rd week of release. So reception for it's been mixed, but actually not too bad. 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. So definitely not bad at all. So that is the movie Sisters. And then the big weekend. The week of Christmas, basically. There were 6 new movies coming out that year, or coming out in that week. That came out in that week. 2 of them in 2 of them in limited release and 4 of them in wide release. I'll talk about the 4 in wide release first. The first one I'm going to talk about is the movie Concussion. The new Will Smith movie. Will Smith stars as this doctor who is trying to discovers groundbreaking research about concussions in the NFL. Hence the name Concussion, the name of the movie Concussion. So this doctor's trying to has research on the brain injuries concussions sustained by NFL football players. The NFL tries to stop him. He has to try to defeat the NFL in the quest to alert the public about the dangers of concussions. So Will Smith is in this movie, Alec Baldwin is in this movie, Luke Wilson, and many others as well. So overall, so far, on a budget of $35 million, it's made $26.8 million, but it's bound to make more. It made $10.5 million opening weekend at the box office. So, not great. Actually, it was projected to gross $8 to $10 million in its opening weekend, but it grossed $10.5, so probably not really the result they wanted. It finished 7th at the box office. To be fair, it had a lot of competition, however, especially from Star Wars. Critically, the movie got a 62% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, a pretty solid review for this movie. So, the next film that I'm going to talk about is the new Will Ferrell comedy, Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg comedy, Daddy's Home. I've said before that they were in a comedy movie once before, 2010's The Other Guys, which is a pretty funny movie for sure. But Daddy's Home is their next appearance, is their second collaboration together, and it's about the battle between the stepdad, played by Will Ferrell, and the absentee dad, played by Mark Wahlberg, the biological father. And they battle to be the best father they can be to their kids. So that's basically what the plot is of the movie. So Daddy's Home, it made $38.8 million opening weekend domestically. That's really good. I mean, granted, Star Wars crushed it, but then again, you figure Star Wars will crush anything these days, so for movies. So Daddy's Home did well. On a budget of $50 million, it's made $115.6 million, so it's made quite a good profit. However, mixed reviews in this movie. There have been some mixed reviews. A 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, so not good reviews for this movie for sure. But I thought Get Hard, another Will Ferrell comedy from this year, was so good. It was so funny. And if you want to see that review, I have it on my channel, if you want to check that out. That movie was hilarious, but it also got bad reviews. So, critics don't understand comedy movies. I mean, don't really review comedy movies all that well. There are a few exceptions, but not a whole lot anyway. So, unfortunately, a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, not great. The third movie in wide release I'm going to talk about is the movie Joy. It is the third collaboration between Jennifer Lawrence, Robert De Niro, and Bradley Cooper. These three have appeared in 2 other movies, Silver Linings Playbook, which came out in 2012. I've heard it was a great critical success at Moneymaker. I've never watched the movie, but I have watched American Hustle, the second movie they were in together, even though Robert De Niro only had a cameo in that appearance. But American Hustle was a good movie. I enjoyed American Hustle a lot. So Joy is about this woman named Joy Manganiello. It's kind of a biopic. It is a biopic. And it is... And this Joy Manganiello is a self-made millionaire who invents the Miracle Mop. And she becomes an overnight success based on that. So Lawrence Cooper and Robert De Niro are back for their third collaboration with each other in this film. Also, their third collaboration with director David O. Russell, who directed Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle. Joy, on a $60 million budget, so far has made $51.8 million. It'll make more. It will definitely exceed $60 million. Opening weekend, Joy finished at $17 million in its, and it made $17 million, finishing third at the box office behind Star Wars: The Force Awakens and Daddy's Home. So Joy probably didn't make the money that people would expect, but I mean, it did respectable, I guess. Critically, it got a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, so solid, but nothing near as good as what the reviews were for Silver Linings Playbook. American Hustle, I think, got in like the 70% range or something like that. 70%, 80%, something like that. But I've been hearing good things about Jennifer Lawrence's performance in the film, and I think Robert De Niro's performance as well. So that's the movie Joy, and the final movie that came out in wide release in this month in the week, was the remake of Point Break. Point Break, of course, for those of you who don't know, was a 90s movie, a 1991 movie starring Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. And it was a classic. I mean, a cult classic film. So this is the remake of it. And it stars some actors and actresses who I've never really heard of before. I kind of heard of them, but a little bit. But not too much. On a budget of $105 million, thus far it's made $80.2 million. So, but the reviews have been terrible. 7% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've heard a lot of bad things about this film, that it's pretty much a pointless remake, that it's boring. I've heard stuff like that. So, needless to say, Point Break, it made $12.1 million in its opening weekend, but finished 10th, I believe. I think it was about 10th at the box office, something like that. Strong box office, by the way, last weekend. But now I'll talk about the two limited releases. And first I'll talk about the latest Quentin Tarantino film, which is called The Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight stars Samuel L. Jackson, who is a great collaborator with Quentin Tarantino. Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Tim Roth, and many others as well. Michael Madsen, who's a frequent Tarantino collaborator. And the movie is being released in 70mm, limited release. It was released in limited release December 25th. And in 70mm. It'll go wide January 8th coming up. So yeah, but this movie, so far, $44 million budget, it's made $29.6 million. You know that total's going to go up when it gets into wide release. But the movie, in general, got a, 75% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So it is one of the better... Quentin Tarantino films have always gotten high reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. This is one of the lower ones, but still, there have been a lot of... I've heard some good buzz about this movie, for sure. I'll have to check it out. And then the final movie that I'm going to be talking about for the entire year of 2015 is The Revenant. It's directed by Alejandro G. Inarritu, who directed Birdman from last year, from a couple years ago, 2014. And I did a review on Birdman, and I really did enjoy the film. Anyway, The Revenant stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy, two big name actors these days. The Revenant is about this 1820s fur trapper who comes in and... Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about... The Hateful Eight's about these 8 guys, or these 7 men and 1 woman, who are trapped in a cabin together, and it's kind of like Clue... It's kind of like Clue, basically. There's been a lot of comparisons to the 80s movie Clue based off the board game. So, that's kind of what Hateful Eight's about. The Revenant's about this fur trapper in the 1820s who is mauled by a bear, left by his team of explorers, his team of fur trappers. The team of fur trappers take his son with them, and now this pissed off fur trapper, who survives the bear attack, by the way, is bound and determined to find and kill the fur trappers who took his son away and abandoned him. So, I've heard good things about this movie for sure. I've heard great things about DiCaprio's performance. So far, it has a budget of $135 million. It's made $1.3 million. I think it's only been released in like 4 or 5 theaters nationwide. It is going in wide release January 8th. And so, the movie in general got an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. So very good, a very solidly good review for The Revenant. Like I said, there's a lot of praise for Leonardo DiCaprio and his performance. There'll definitely be some Oscar buzz for him, for sure. He'll be nominated. And so, that is it. That is it for the movies of 2015. Now, I'm not going to get into the movies that came out in January that are coming out this month of 2016, because I'm going to be, in a future video, I'm going to be talking about the big releases and smaller releases that I'm going to be looking forward to in 2015. Just my most anticipated list, for sure. So, that is it for this video on the December movie releases. D-Rock 1992 out.